It's new week. It's new week. It's so good to be back. It's Monday. And this is the Feedback Loop with Chris Courtney. And I'm super excited to have you here. We've got a couple submissions here this morning. Tejal is in the middle of her portfolio build, chipping away at it. Got some good questions this morning related to responsive design and animations, and we're going to investigate a couple things there. Rebecca's also in the middle of a project for a client, and she's made a lot of progress over the weekend, clearly working on her WordPress build. I'm going to try to help her jump through some of the hoops. Something really interesting that I think Rebecca's discovering is that a lot of these editors that are supposed to make things easier than code, like there's this whole thing out there, this no code movement, and I'm actually a fan of WordPress from the perspective of you can kind of merge these two worlds together. There's a lot that you can do in WordPress that doesn't require any code, provided that you have like some sort of add-on like Elementor. And Elementor is just, in my opinion, a better version of Webflow, in that you can actually use some of your coding knowledge to kind of fill the gap. But with all the WYSIWYG sort of editors, you have to figure out where they hid crap. Like where is this particular control hidden? I know what I want it to do, but because you've been super intuitive, Mr. or Mrs. Maker of WYSIWYG editor, you've hidden what I'm looking for. And that's not uncommon. It's no different than working with Illustrator or Photoshop or any number of other tools that have come before. It's always about, where was that thing hidden? And once you discover where the thing was hidden, you're good to go until they update it and they move it and everybody gets mad. So, and I say that as somebody who's used Photoshop for Photoshop and Illustrator going well over 2 decades, closer to 3 decades at this point. So I understand the pain that you feel when you're trying to figure these things out. That's one of the reasons why I was like, man, when I discover code, I'm like, oh my God, I can just tell it what I want it to do and it'll do it. I don't have to go figuring out which drop-down menu I need. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and jump in. Let's I also set up some new quick keys for transitions, and we'll see how long that works for me. So one of Rebecca's first questions here was interesting to me, because she's now got Elementor Pro, and that's great because now you can inject like custom CSS into things. Oh my goodness. And this is great because before we were having to kind of jump back and forth to sort out how we can add this, and then what selectors are needed. I will say this, I've added some custom CSS here, Rebecca, just because I was researching this, and I found that it wasn't what they were writing that was hard to figure out. Like, hey, I want this background color change, which I'm targeting this background color. Essentially, what I'm about to show you is that, and they're using a lot of importance too, which makes me worried. But what I'm about to show you is there's a transition that happens here. We've created a sticky nav, so the nav sticks to the top, and then as you go behind it, you can begin to see, well, actually you can't at this point, but you will begin to see when we transition over that this nav becomes transparent, which is Rebecca's, one of her big questions this morning was, how do I make it transparent? Well, making it transparent is really targeting the right selectors. And how would you find out what the right selectors are? Well, there's a couple of different ways that you could go about it, and I'm going to try to find my way back to, yeah, it's down here. I'm just going to rearrange my windows for a second. So you'll notice that as we scroll down, well, there should be, I'm going to refresh this because for some reason it's not there. And it takes a second to load and whatever. Let's go ahead and change this to 6. All right, and we'll update it. And this 0.6, it's an RGBA, so this is like, it's just saying it's black, and then at some point it becomes like 60%. So you're going to be able to see through it as you scroll, but that scroll doesn't immediately happen. All right, so we'll refresh, and hopefully that change will have taken place. And as we come up, you should, yeah, there it is. Okay, so you see there, the transparency is there. So the transparency is not there, and then it comes in gradually as you scroll. Okay, and that's kind of what I've set up. Obviously, you can do this differently, but the big thing here that I think is important is, and we do need to like work on that. That's not ideal. But over here, the really hard part of this is figuring out what to target. Because if you're not selector, what selector? Well, element sticky effects. You know, selector, element stick, you know, you got to figure out what is Elementor calling this thing. And it took some digging around to figure out what to target. But once you figure out what to target, you're pretty much okay. And it takes a second for it to come in. But that's all controlled by this ease property here. So if and of course I jump away from it. If I decide that I want to make that very fast, I could just say 1 second. And I'll update it. And when I update it, the trouble here is you can't really preview it here. Although it is previewing now. Yeah. Okay. So, my bad. It is previewing. But if you come over and we refresh, see it appears a lot faster now. So, that's how you do it. Over here, it also, the CSS is not the only part. There's also this other part with motion effects. So, I can change this and say not sticky header, but then you don't get the transparency effect. You can also change what you're targeting. So if you don't want the sticky header to be there for mobile or tablet, you can just hit the X there. You can also adjust this offset. So if I said 0 on the offset, the effect takes place pretty much immediately. I'm just curious about something. Oh, so it won't take a negative. I do think that having the offset of 100 is smart because it starts off as dark. It would appear that perhaps if I came over to advanced and I adjusted maybe there's an offset that I can adjust here. Seems like there would be a positioning on this, that margin top -100. No, I said -100. Okay, so that's there. So if I wanted this to appear further up, I could put like a negative margin on this. I don't necessarily want. I could like delink those values and put that at 0. And then I could just come in here and I could put like a padding top of 100. Oh, I've got to unlist those as well. So 0, 0, 0. And now, you know, I could maybe send -1. Yeah, now if you notice, now we've got that showing up in the background. So if what you're really looking for is for that to show up in the background. We've got it now. And I just have to go and I have to remember to hit update. I'm so used to Gatsby or even using just straight HTML and CSS and VS Code just automatically updating. It's so nice. It's so nice. So here, let's all right. So you can kind of see it's already up there. It does look like maybe let's see, motion effects on the sticky nav. Maybe I don't necessarily need that if I want to see through it, you know. Maybe just be best if I had it like this. And now we come over and I refresh. I should be able to see right through it. I can. Yeah. So again, this is a lot of it's motion effects, but more importantly, it's advanced hitting the offsets, which they're not even showing up here, but they're in there obviously. And then coming down to custom CSS and entering custom CSS, but you have to know what selectors you're aiming at, which makes it difficult. See, thought we had some comments in the new Pragmatic channel. Feel free again to chime in if you have questions as we go through. But that's that part. So that's part one. You had another really good question, and it relates to how to do this. And I had to do some digging on this because part of the problem, and you're like classes home and class. Well, what does classes go to? Well, classes like goes to a page, and I was trying to sort out before our call how to get this to basically do that. And it turns out you've got to do some work in a couple of places as per usual. So the first thing you've got to do, and you'll notice like it's not showing up here, and that's because I've got to make the menu adjustment in WordPress, okay, not in Elementor. But I set up my targets over here in Elementor, which you may notice this big gray bar, and it's really faint, but there's like an anchor here. And what that's basically saying is I have to add a anchor menu anchor to this, and if we go in and look at this anchor, you'll see that it has an ID of menu. The ID of menu anchor is classes. All right. So there's an ID called classes now in your project. And the problem I had was when I came over here, I couldn't figure out, even if I say edit, if I say edit the menu, there's nowhere to make that adjustment. So what I actually had to do is come over to menus. And in menus, down here, appearance menus, you have these elements that are pages. And I couldn't sort out how to change this from a page link to something else. So what I ended up doing was I ended up coming over and saying custom link. And then I'm going to create one for pricing. And as you can see, this says, I'll say pricing, and then I'll say pricing. Okay, makes sense. So I'll add that to the menu. I'm not going to delete these off because I'm not quite sure what you need and what you don't need. I am going to drag it to the top so that you are aware that it's something new and different. So over here, appearance menus, that's where that exists. I'm going to save it. And as we go back over to Elementor, you've already got one for classes. but you need one for pricing. So I'm going to come back over. I'm going to grab anchor, and I'm going to drag that into the top right there, because I don't want it to go to the top up here. I want it to go right below, right above the pricing name. And now I'm going to say pricing here in the ID of menu anchor. I've got to update that. And now when we come over and update this, I'm looking for a couple things. I'm looking for, so we have classes, pricing, home. You also, notice that we haven't like this weird underlining thing going on. And that's because these are both set to active. So I'm going to need you to rethink how active works. Because active, like I've clicked on pricing, and now here I'm at pricing. If I go classes, it takes me back up. And then I can come back up. I should be able to come back up to the logo, but that's not set up right now. But home, this idea of home being active and having an active state, I don't think is going to work, because now you have these anchor tags that are needing attention. So you're going to have some styling issues there. Final note, to get let's get down here. So you've got this. You had a question about how to get this to turn into a link, and luckily all these text boxes, they do have a link, the ability to trigger a link. And for phone numbers, I've just put a mock Chicago number in here. You would it's funny, I think that's a commercial. This may actually be a business here in Chicago. I'm not sure. 22232. I think it's actually an attorney. So if you want to call an attorney, go ahead and dial that number. But it's this tel colon. You have to put tel colon in front of it, and I've already done that. So if I come down here and click on it, it should it's wanting to trigger FaceTime. Yeah, let's just see who it is. I'm not really going to see who it is, but my point is, on my computer it's triggering FaceTime because it's wanting to. That's how it makes calls on my computer. On a phone, it would trigger the phone app to begin working. So there's that. So it's just add tel colon to the front of it, and off you go. So those are. I wouldn't call any of those really straightforward. And the reason I say that is the WYSIWYG editor of Elementor, while helpful, while this is very helpful on a lot of things, it also does a magnificent job of hiding things in random places. I wouldn't necessarily think that I could edit. I could edit the menu here because menu's driven, and like the data is coming from somewhere, and if I can't type it in here, it's got to be coming from WordPress, and that's where I would hope it would come from. But setting up, it is odd that I would set up the anchors the way that I am, and it's also frankly very odd that like this thing is so visual. It's like trying to give me a preview of what it's going to look like, and then when I put an anchor tag in there, it's like just gray box. Really? Is that going to show up? It's not going to show up, obviously, but it is something that you need to be aware of. All right. So a lot of good things there for Rebecca. Let's go ahead and close out of these. Tedgel's up next, and Tedgel has the big thing that if we don't get to anything else today, the big thing that I want to look at is responsive. I want to take a good hard look at responsive. I'll go ahead and just save these things because I definitely want to come back to that. And we will open Tejal's portfolio. Let's take a look at what she's got. So check get status. Get pull. I can tell she was doing a lot of work over the weekend. Also, one thing I was really happy with was the fact that she recognized the page load, the weight of the page load. She had these separate images for the blue elements, and simplifying that down was a smart move, because it just lightens the load so much. Let's go ahead and go live with this. And again, if you're watching along and you want to, you have questions, feel free to jump into the channel. Let's see here. Oh, okay. So it's hanging on that video load from, I believe that's from Vimeo. All right. So, ooh, that's nice. That's fun. I like that. Previously, this was a pretty simple little line going across. That's a lot of fun. Actually, I'm just curious. No, okay. Image. I was like, did you go crazy? No, you didn't go crazy. Very clean all the way down. Very nice. Yeah, we got to come back to the Davy. Did we have? Oh, we have the Davy as a single image. Okay, that's good. There's some work that we can do there. Okay, so let's get started here, because what's really important that we do with Tejal's work today is we get down here and we begin to look at areas where we have responsive questions. So I'm looking at it. Obviously, this is going to be a problem in a responsive design situation. This should, I mean, these are separate images, so those should be going down. Okay, so they are. In this particular instance, Tejal, I would suggest, wait, do you have, I'm just curious. Yeah, you've got grid gap on here. So I'm wondering where it goes to. Here, so okay, so you've got this class 4 rows images. Yeah, that's a grid. Where did the grid go? It's as if the grid disappeared. I just want to go looking for this. Let's shut images down. Let's come down here to style. Okay. And then I don't see where it would go away. I should probably look at the index.html. So there's mood board. Yeah. Let's look at mood board. Perhaps there's something happening on mood board that I'm not aware of. Okay, so there's mood board. And that's only being used in one spot. I don't understand why the grid gap would go away. But I'm going to come back with the media query. And I'm going to kind of flip this on its head a bit. But that's, it's like there's no way that could, that's got to be getting overwritten somewhere. Because otherwise, I mean, I don't really understand. Yeah, there's just nothing that could be overriding it. There's nothing in your code that's overriding it. At least I don't think so. But like it's pretty clear the grid is not appearing. It's saying grid's there, and then grid's not there. How is it possible? There's got to be something else going on here that I'm simply not seeing. Either way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this. I'm going to kind of reverse engineer this because at a minimum size of 768 or however we decide we want this to be, I want this to come back up. So I'll say it, at 600. At 600 you can give me this stuff back, but at all sizes, I'm just gonna say 1FR. But I definitely want like that. I want this to all still be there, and I don't necessarily think we need that. And really, as you go up in size, I'm just changing. But I'm still not getting. Oh, well, I've definitely gotta do that. Well, it should already be set. It says display grid, yeah. I mean, I could write this syntax a little nicer down here. It would just really just be 4. I'm gonna try to force something real quick. If I say 2. Have I been making the changes in the right spot? Yeah, I have. Wow. Oh, well, there it is. So it's showing up now. Obviously, these logos are a bit of a problem. Also, there's the depth of this. Okay, now I'm beginning to see some issues. That is a clear problem. It's so weird. This was showing up just fine just a moment ago. I'm going to shut down live. Okay, so I'm worried that go live. There's like a bug in go live. Now I'll restart it. Let's see here. Yeah. I just want to make sure I'm looking at. Okay, this is visual direction. Here's your mood board. What the hell? Close that one down. Mood board. It's the only place for mood. Wow. Okay. So you have a gremlin here. Something is making your image grid like I was gonna say display grid. Um. So let's just say, let's just throw on some grid template columns 1FR 1FR. Okay, so it comes in when I call it directly. Okay, so it's not that. 4-row images grid. 4-row images grid. It is literally right there. Sorry, I'm just going to remove mood board. Very frustrating. Is there something happening on a container that I'm not aware of? Is there a viewport set? Yes, there is a viewport set. Interesting. Goes to 2, as expected. And then to 1, but I don't call it to go to 1. At no point do I call this to go to 1. It's interesting. You go from mood board to storyboard. And I'm wondering why. It's like, I'm also wondering why this appears to. Hmm. Yeah, the container closes. That's why it goes edge to edge. Huh. There's something here, Tedgel, and I'm not quite grasping why it's breaking where it's breaking. I mean, we can get in, like this is interesting. Actually, let's come back up to outcomes because outcome is clearly broken. I'll come back to that 4-core thing because maybe there is something that's so broken up here that's causing that problem down below. So, oh, there's some sort of interesting. Yeah, you can't have that height thing going on. So there's something in parallax 1 that was busting it. I'm not sure what the it looks like maybe there's is there some gradient at the top of this that's coming into play? Regardless, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that height issue because that's going to cause that to break. So we're going to go in immediately and fix that. Well, that didn't fix all of it. Okay, that got it back. So that still allows your background to kind of do the fade thing that you're looking for it to do, but you've got to always give your content the ability to actually show up. And I'm curious. I don't think that had anything to do with this. Between you and me, and it doesn't. Okay. So on the flip side, we fixed that bit of an issue. The design tools, these are broken again, and it is as if everything involving grid is being removed further down. It's like grid's here, and then as you go further down, I just have to go check it in Chrome. Like it's as if it's just being magically removed from everything, and that just doesn't make any sense. Now, Chrome and Firefox share the same rendering engine, so they should render. Well, actually, no. I'm sorry. Firefox and Safari share the same rendering engine, but this stinky. I don't understand. What gives What gives? So it works when I call it directly on, but it goes away. All the grids go away. What is deactivating grid? I gotta know more about the parallax changes that have come in. Because I know you've added a lot of code here, but I'm not familiar with what was added. I'm a little concerned. Hmm. Right here. You know, Tedral, I'm gonna have to punt. Uh, I've got to pull this apart and kind of. Well, actually, you know what? Yeah. I want to go rebuild this in a sandbox. And the good news is we have a sandbox. We have a sandbox. It's called your other. Yeah. So we got a sandbox. Let's just grab this thing. Let's grab everything in the class storyboard. I'm just gonna grab it. Actually, I'm gonna come up here to this other one. Visual direction. I'm gonna grab everything in visual direction. I'm gonna come into Bergen. I'm gonna drop it in, just straight in. I'm gonna make sure I've got your style sheet in there. And I just want to see if it does the same thing when I pull it away. And then I'm going to also start pulling things off of this as well. Okay. So let's go to I probably misspelled it, didn't I? Yeah, B-U. Bergen.html, although I've got to be inside of a projects folder. Here we go. Interesting. Although now I've got to get to all this stuff. It's actually a really good timing because we've got to link to these elements that are elsewhere, really. And it does the same weird breaky thing. So regardless if I come through and like fix all the images, which is gonna have to happen when we come over here anyway. You have to fix all the images because you're moving it structurally to another part of your project. Okay, so we've got the images in here, or some of them at least, and this is also, you know, we've got this thing's broken, but we've got to sort out why that is happening. I just want to pull off that single call. I just want to get it right down to this, like 4 row. No matter what's happening the rest of your project, that should be working. 4 row display grid. Grid template columns, grid gap. Padding top, padding bottom. Okay. So I'm going to create another file here. New file. Test.css. I'm looking for conflicts at this point. All right, so I'm going to pull off on Bergen. I'm going to move this from reset to style, or from style to test, and it works. Okay, that's interesting. That's really interesting. That's interesting to me because that means there's a conflict somewhere in here. And I'm not sure where, because when I pasted it into the other file, it worked immediately. So I've got to go in here and like try to pull this apart, because there's somewhere that there's now a conflict. I suspect that if I rolled back prior to parallax, that it works, and that's the next piece of the puzzle I'm going to do. I'm going to stash everything that we just did, just everything. Just get rid of all of it. Git stash. Git stash. That puts everything back where it was. So now if I refresh, Bergen's not there. If I go back to your index.html. It's there. It should be just as broken as it was before. Like the changes that we made here with the 75% on the depth, that's gone. But what I'm trying to get back to is I'm trying to get back to figuring out what's happened with your like design tools here. Because there's a grid in here. There's a grid in here that is being completely ignored. And I need to know why. I need to know why does it work here but not there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to check out a prior, so I'm going to say git log, and it says here edit hero outcomes. So test it idea board HTML parallax background images test need to be took slash off hero background unit. I'm just going to check this one out. So this is Saturday, and basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to go back and see, okay, where did it break? So git checkout Okay, so that puts us back here. And the tools were working there. Okay, so the tools were working there. And the grid was working here. Was the grid working at a smaller size? Or was it just at 4? Yeah, it was just at 4. The adjustment had not been made to go any smaller than that yet. Your backgrounds are the same. Okay, you'd made this change. These were working. Okay, so let's move up. All right, so I'm gonna say git log. And now I want to check out this commit from late Saturday. So I'm gonna say git checkout. Oh, sorry, I gotta like remove that extra space there. Okay, it did take. All right, so that's still working. Yeah, still working. That's fine. So now I want to go to your last commit. So your last commit is where we're at right now. Made a number of CSS changes. Now the spacing is working for me. Okay, but now when we check out, that's pretty weird. Because now it's working where it wasn't working before. All right, so what are we really seeing here? Git checkout. So now we're back at the very top. And what happens when we're at the very top? We're at the very top, the tippy top. It's broken. So there's something going on, and I haven't found it yet. It's going to take a bit more digging. But there's something happening here. And I'm not sure why. These are broken. Again, git log. So we have update. Okay, so we have we actually had gone back further. There were a number of changes that occurred. I want to see added parallax. Git status, or git checkout. Okay, so that, now the background images, this is busted, but the grid still works. So that's not where our issue is. Git log. I want to check. Spacing was working for you is fine. Trying to fix the hero image. Quit. Git checkout. Okay. Git log. I suspect the last update. We actually git checkout master. It's something that happened. What is this idea board? Like when we come back up, that's busted. So, when we look at that last submission was added hero. I just want to check out testing idea board HTML. Get checkout. Something happened in your last commit, Tejal. The very last one that you made. Something happened. And it says here, added hero overview and outcome sections to idea board. Something busted there. Yeah, something is busted. And we need to, I guess now this is where I need to go back and look at a diff to look at these two. But unfortunately, I've run out of time on this particular round of it. Add a hero overview. It just seems like you've moved sections. I don't see testing idea board added. Like in between these two, like if I roll this back, if we roll back to right here, Tejal, try to see if you're hanging out with us this morning. If we roll back right here, it's functioning. Like the grids are working. Curious. Is the other part busted? Yeah. So the spacing here is busted, but parallax is in there. So I'm really curious what was added in that last checkout, or that last push. So I'm going to do some research there, because there's something in your last push that's busting the grid, and I don't know what it is, because it's not really showing up. I'm not going to push any of this stuff. I'm going to say git stash. Because it says no local changes, but test is still in there. So I'm not going to push anything. I will come back to this. One thing I did want to point out is there are for adding some unique transitions. Animate.css would be a really lightweight. Animate CSS. No, I guess it's not really called animate.css. This is these are some really lightweight interactions that you can add to your project, just to get started moving in a new direction. But before I would really jump into this, we need to go back and look at that last commit, because there's something's happened in there, and I'm not quite sure what it is yet. So I'm going to run a diff on that, and then I will check back in with you. But otherwise, I'm going to shut this down because I've got some digging to do, and I need to take a break to answer a couple of messages that have come through, in the interim. So without further ado, feedback loop. I'm going to sign off, and then I will check back in with all of you again tomorrow. So Rebecca, yay, Tegel, we got some work to do. But otherwise, I will see you all later. Take care.